The rain had been falling since dawn, drumming hard against the rusty iron roofs of Makueni, a quiet village tucked between red hills and endless stretches of maize fields. The air smelled of wet soil and smoke from charcoal fires, and the muddy paths were alive with the sound of children's laughter, at least for some of them. For Eli Kiptu, the rain wasn't something to laugh about. His school uniform clung to his thin body, soaked through, and his feet, bare and calloused, splashed through puddles as he hurried down the winding path toward Makueni Secondary School. To most people in the village, Eli was the boy who never quite fit in. He was poor, too poor even to afford proper shoes or a real school bag. He carried his books in an old unga flour sack, tied neatly at the top with a piece of sisal rope. His father had died when he was 10, and his mother, Mama Rahab, sold roasted maize by the roadside to keep them fed. But despite it all, Eli had something no one could take from him: his curiosity. "Hey, look at the professor!" shouted Brian, one of the older boys at school, as Eli entered the muddy compound. "Maybe one day he'll invent shoes for himself." The others burst into laughter. Eli forced a smile, eyes fixed on the ground. He'd learned long ago that responding only made things worse. Still, those words cut deep. Because even though he was mocked, even though everyone saw him as a nobody, Eli's mind never stopped racing. He could look at a broken radio and see potential. He could stare at the stars and wonder, not about their beauty, but how they powered the night sky. Every evening after school, while others kicked a football or helped in their parents' shops, Eli sat outside their tiny mud house under the flicker of a kerosene lamp, surrounded by scrap wires, rusted batteries, and radio parts salvaged from the village dump site. "Mwana wangu," his mother would call softly. "Come and eat. You've been at that thing all evening." "Just a few more minutes, Mama," he'd say without looking up. "If I can connect this properly, I think I can make it light again." She'd shake her head and smile sadly. "You and your machines. One day, maybe they'll listen to you." But in Makueni, dreams like Eli's didn't get you far. People whispered. Some said he was wasting time. Others said he was bewitched, too obsessed with things he didn't understand. Even his science teacher, Mr. Njoroge, had once told him, "Eli, you need to stop chasing fantasies. No one from here builds inventions. Study for your exams and find a real job someday." Yet deep inside, Eli knew he was meant for something more, something big. And then, one stormy afternoon, destiny came calling. Eli was on his way home from school, the rain falling so heavily it blurred his vision. He took a shortcut through the forest path near the old quarry, a place the locals said was haunted by spirits. As he hurried along, his foot struck something hard, buried under the red mud. He stumbled, almost falling face first, then turned to see what it was. He crouched down, wiped away the thick layer of soil, and froze. It wasn't a stone. It gleamed faintly, even in the dull light. Metallic, smooth, and shaped unlike anything he'd ever seen before. Eli looked around. No one was there. The rain drowned every sound except his heartbeat. He picked it up slowly, mud dripping from his fingers, and whispered to himself, "What are you?" He didn't know it yet, but that strange object, half buried in the red earth of Makueni, was about to rewrite his destiny. And eventually, the world's. The strange discovery. Eli didn't make it home until long after dark. The rain had stopped, but the wind still whispered through the trees, as if the forest itself wanted to keep its secret. Inside his rice sack bag, wrapped tightly in an old handkerchief, was the thing he'd found. The strange metallic object that gleamed even without light. It wasn't heavy, but when he held it, he felt a faint vibration, like the hum of a running machine or the slow heartbeat of something alive. By the time he reached their small mud house, his mother was already outside, worried. "Eli, you've been gone for hours," she cried. Do you want to make me grow old before my time? I'm sorry, Mama, he said breathlessly. I found something. Her expression softened a little, though she sighed. As long as it's not more junk, my son. You fill this house with rubbish that doesn't even talk back. Eli laughed nervously. This one's different, Mama. I promise. He slipped inside, lit the small kerosene lamp, and carefully unwrapped his find. The faint orange glow revealed it fully for the first time. It was smooth, too smooth, like it had been shaped by precision machines. One side had intricate carvings, almost like circuit lines, though no one in Makueni would know what a microchip looked like. The other side was marked with faint symbols that shimmered when the flame flickered. His mother frowned. Eli, where did you find this? By the old quarry, he said, tracing his finger along the strange patterns. It was buried in the mud. I think it's old, maybe part of a machine. Mama Rahab shook her head. That place is cursed. People say strange lights come from there at night. Don't bring spirits into this house, eh? Eli smiled faintly but didn't answer. Spirits or not, he couldn't ignore the feeling that this thing was important. That night, long after his mother had fallen asleep, he sat cross-legged beside the lamp, examining every inch of the object. When he tapped it gently with a screwdriver, it made no sound, just a dull vibration that seemed to echo inside his chest. Then, as if responding to his touch, the carvings began to glow. Eli froze. The room filled with a faint bluish light, pulsing softly like breathing. His heart raced. He reached out again, and the glow intensified. A low hum filled the air, followed by a series of rhythmic clicks, like code, like language. Are you alive? He whispered, not expecting an answer. The object pulsed once, then fell silent. The light dimmed and faded completely, leaving only the kerosene flame flickering in confusion. Eli sat back, breathing hard. He didn't understand what just happened, but one thing was certain. This wasn't just metal. The next morning, he packed it into his bag and carried it to school. But as he crossed the gate, something strange happened again. The security guard's transistor radio, which had been playing an old Roomba song, suddenly went static, then crackled back to life in perfect clarity. Eli froze. The object in his bag gave a faint hum, like a secret he wasn't supposed to carry. And from that moment, nothing in Makueni would ever be the same again. When machines start to speak. The morning sun rose over Makueni like molten gold, glinting off the dew-soaked grass and the corrugated roofs of small mud homes. But Eli barely noticed the beauty. His mind was still trapped in the blue glow that had filled his room last night. At school, while the others joked about football and exam results, Eli sat quietly in the back, his rice sack bag resting on his lap. The object inside gave off that same faint hum, like it was aware of where it was, like it was listening. During physics class, Mr. Njoroge scribbled equations on the board, muttering about potential energy and conductivity. Eli wasn't listening. His mind was spinning in another direction entirely. When the bell rang for lunch, he didn't follow the others to the canteen. Instead, he slipped away toward the back of the school, where old lab equipment was stored. The science room hadn't been used in months. The shelves were dusty, and cobwebs hung from the corners. He set the object on the wooden table and studied it closely under the dull light from the window. "Let's see who you really are," he murmured. He connected two small wires from a dead battery to the object's metallic surface. Instantly, the air in the room shifted. The object pulsed, the carvings lighting up again, but brighter this time. A low vibration filled the floor, followed by a faint sound, almost like a voice, but broken, mechanical. Eli's eyes widened. He turned off the connection, heart pounding. "What was that?" he whispered. He reattached the wires, this time carefully. The glow returned, stronger. The sound grew clearer, forming fragmented words in a language he didn't recognize. But amid the strange syllables, one word stood out. Eli. The boy froze. He looked around the empty room. No one. Only the faint wind through the cracked window. "Did you just say my name?" he stammered. The object pulsed once like a heartbeat, then again. He reached out a trembling hand and touched it. Suddenly, images flashed through his mind: blue lights, swirling stars, metallic cities, machines that moved like living creatures. He pulled back, gasping for air. Then everything went dark. When he opened his eyes, the glow was gone and the object was silent once more. But Eli knew something had changed, not just in the object, but in him. That evening, when he got home, he tried explaining what had happened to his mother. "Mama, I think it spoke to me," he said quietly. Mama Rahab looked at him in disbelief. "Spoke to you? Eli, are you sure you're eating enough? Maybe you're dreaming too much." Eli shook his head. "It knew my name." She sighed deeply. "My son, sometimes when we want something too much, our minds start to see things that aren't there." But Eli knew it wasn't his imagination. Because later that night, as the wind howled outside and the kerosene lamp flickered, the object began to glow again on its own, brighter than ever. And in the silence of the night, a faint whisper echoed through the room. "Help me." Eli barely slept that night. The whisper, soft but unmistakable, had burrowed into his thoughts like a song he couldn't turn off. "Help me." By morning, he was trembling with both fear and curiosity. The object now sat quietly on his desk, its glow gone, as if pretending to be harmless. But Eli could still feel it, its presence, its energy, like it was alive in some invisible way. He needed answers. After school, instead of heading home, he walked back toward the forest near the old quarry where he'd found it. The air was still and heavy, the kind that made even birds go quiet. He stopped at the spot where he had stumbled days before and crouched down, brushing away the red dust. At first, there was nothing, but then he noticed faint markings in the soil, circular patterns burned into the ground, too perfect to be natural. He placed his palm over one, and for a second, he felt a weak vibration, the same hum as the object. Something beneath the hills of Makueni was alive. "Eli, what are you doing here?" He spun around. It was Amina, his classmate, a girl known for her sharp tongue and fearless curiosity. She had followed him, carrying a half-empty bottle of Fanta. "I could ask you the same thing," he said quickly. She folded her arms. "You've been acting strange all week. The teachers say you're distracted, so tell me, what's going on?" Eli hesitated. No one would believe him. But then again, Amina had always been different. She liked science too. Maybe she'd understand. He unwrapped the cloth and showed her the object. Her eyes widened. "What is that?" "I don't know," Eli admitted. "But it's not from here. It talks, it reacts, it even knows my name." Amina took a step back, half skeptical, half intrigued. "Eli, that looks advanced, like something from a satellite or an aircraft." "Maybe," he said, looking toward the horizon. "But why was it buried here?" That question hung in the air like smoke. Later that night, the two met again near the quarry, carrying torches and a small spade. They began to dig carefully around the spot where Eli had found the object. Hours passed and their hands blistered, but then, Amina's torch flickered over something. "Eli, look." Just below the surface lay another piece, larger this time, dull silver and covered in strange engravings. Connected to it was a tangle of fiber-like wires that seemed to burrow deeper into the earth. They exchanged a terrified glance. Whatever this is, Amina whispered, it's big. And she was right, because a week later, men in dark uniforms arrived in Makueni. They didn't wear police badges, they carried metal detectors and spoke in low voices. And everywhere they searched, especially near the quarry, they warned villagers to stay away. That night, as Eli lay awake, he heard the whisper again, louder, clearer. They're coming. Protect it. The visitors in the dark. For the next few days, Makueni didn't feel like Makueni anymore. Men in black SUVs roamed the dusty roads, their tinted windows reflecting the frightened faces of villagers. They said they were geological researchers from Nairobi, but everyone knew better. No one carried rifles just to study rocks. Eli tried to keep a low profile, but it was impossible. Every morning, he'd catch glimpses of one of the men standing near the school gate, pretending to read a newspaper. Every evening, when he walked home, a black vehicle seemed to trail behind at a distance. Even Mama Rahab noticed the change. Eli, she said one night as she stirred the ugali, why do these strangers keep asking questions about you? Did you get yourself into trouble? Eli hesitated. No, Mama. I promise I didn't do anything wrong. But deep down, he wasn't sure anymore. The object, now hidden inside a tin box beneath his bed, had begun to behave strangely again. It no longer pulsed blue, but instead emitted a faint red glow every few hours, as if warning him. And sometimes, when he got close, he could hear faint murmurs in his head, voices that weren't his own. That Friday night, just past midnight, a distant rumble woke him. He thought it was thunder until he saw headlights creeping down the path toward their compound. He froze. Then came the soft crunch of boots on gravel. Eli quickly reached under the bed, grabbed the box, and slipped out through the back window. The night air was cold and heavy with mist. He darted through the narrow alley behind the maize fields, clutching the tin box close to his chest. Behind him, he heard the front door creak open. Then his mother's startled cry. "Who are you? What do you want?" "Mama!" Eli almost turned back, but a voice in his mind, calm, robotic, yet urgent, whispered, "Run, Eli. Run. Now." He ran. His feet pounded the muddy earth, his breath short and ragged. The maize stalks whipped against his arms as he ducked into the forest path. The box vibrated violently, growing hotter with each step. Then suddenly, the red light inside flared so bright it lit up the trees. He stumbled into a clearing and fell to his knees. The box lid flew open on its own. The object rose slowly into the air, spinning, its symbols glowing in rapid sequence. A beam of light shot upward into the night sky, splitting the clouds. Eli shielded his face, terrified. Then, just as suddenly, it stopped. The light vanished, and the object dropped back into the mud, silent and still. Eli stared at it, chest heaving. What are you?" he whispered. Before he could think, he heard shouts behind him, men's voices, flashlights cutting through the trees. He grabbed the object, shoved it back into the box, and ran deeper into the forest. Somewhere behind him, one of the men shouted, "Find the boy! He's got it!" And as Eli vanished into the darkness, one thing became painfully clear. Whatever this thing was, it wasn't just a discovery. It was a secret the world wasn't supposed to know. The code from the stars. Eli didn't stop running until the first light of dawn began to break over the horizon. His legs trembled, his lungs burned, and his clothes were torn from the branches that had clawed at him through the night. But he was alive. Barely. He hid inside an abandoned cattle shed near the edge of the forest. The air was thick with the smell of hay and old wood. Carefully, he set the tin box down and opened it. The object lay quietly, as if nothing had happened. But Eli knew better. It had called him, warned him, protected him. A sound startled him, a soft whistle. He looked up to see Amina carrying a small bag and a flashlight. "I knew you'd come here," she whispered. "The whole village is crawling with soldiers. Your mum's safe." They questioned her, but she didn't say anything. Eli's throat tightened. "They're looking for this." He showed her the object. She crouched beside him, her eyes wide. "Eli, you can't keep this. Whatever it is, it's not meant for us." "I know," he said quietly. "But it chose me." For hours they sat together, studying it. The symbols on its surface seemed to shift and rearrange themselves, forming intricate patterns like constellations. Amina, who had always been good with computers, pulled out her old solar-powered tablet. "Maybe these lines aren't random," she said, tracing them with her finger. "What if it's a code? A language?" Eli leaned in. "What kind of language glows when you touch it?" "The kind that isn't from here," she whispered. That night, they took turns watching the object. Each time it pulsed, it projected faint holographic images onto the walls. Symbols, equations, and strange star maps. Amina snapped pictures with her tablet, then began comparing the star positions with online data she'd stored from NASA's archives. Her face went pale. "Eli, these stars aren't from our galaxy." He stared at her, disbelief and fear swirling together. "What are you saying?" "I think this thing, it's not man-made. It's alien." Eli's mind spun. He thought of the whispers, the voices, the beam of light that split the clouds. And suddenly, it all made terrifying sense. The object wasn't broken. It was calling home. Before they could speak another word, the object came alive again. The glow intensified, and the strange voice returned, clearer this time, calm but filled with urgency. "Eli Kiptu, the signal is incomplete. The core is buried beneath the red hills. You must restore it before they destroy it." Amina's mouth dropped open. "Did it just say your full name?" Eli could barely breathe. "Yes, and I think it knows where it came from." The voice spoke again, softer now, almost human. "You found me for a reason. The world is not ready, but you must be." Then the light vanished, plunging them into silence. Amina turned to him slowly. "Eli, what if that thing didn't just fall from the sky?" He met her gaze, his heartbeat loud in his ears. "Then someone, or something, put it here on purpose." By sunrise, Makueni was crawling with soldiers and men in black suits. Checkpoints were set up along every road. The locals whispered that a meteor had fallen nearby, but Eli and Amina knew the truth was far more dangerous than a space rock. Hiding deep in the acacia forest, they planned their next move. The object's message still echoed in Eli's mind. "The core is buried beneath the red hills." Amina unfolded a hand-drawn map she'd made from memory. "If we follow the valley past the quarry, we reach the red hills. That's where the old mining tunnels used to be before they were sealed off." Eli nodded. "Then that's where we go." They set off before dusk, moving quietly through the thickets. The air grew colder the closer they got. The hills glowed faintly in the setting sun, their reddish soil reflecting streaks of gold. Near the base of the hill, they found what looked like a forgotten entrance, half covered in vines and debris. Faded government warning signs still hung loosely on the wooden beams. "No entry. Geological hazard." Amina's voice trembled. "They weren't trying to keep people out because of danger, Eli. They were hiding something." They pried open the rusty gate and slipped inside. The tunnels were damp and silent, except for the echo of dripping water. Their flashlights cast long, eerie shadows on the walls. Deeper and deeper they went until their lights caught something unnatural. Smooth, metallic surfaces embedded into the rock, just like the object Eli had found. The walls weren't natural stone anymore, they were engineered. Amina gasped. "This isn't a mine, it's a structure." As they pressed forward, they entered a vast underground chamber. In the middle stood a colossal sphere, buried halfway in the earth, humming faintly. It was covered in the same glowing symbols as the small object. Eli approached slowly, his heart racing. "This is it, the core." The small object in his bag began to vibrate violently, glowing brighter and brighter until it slipped from his hands and floated toward the massive sphere. It fit perfectly into a small indentation on its surface, like a key sliding into a lock. A deep rumble shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. Then, with a blinding flash, the sphere came alive. Columns of light burst through cracks in the walls, spreading like veins of energy. The whole chamber began to hum in a strange rhythm, not chaotic, but coordinated, almost musical. Amina grabbed Eli's arm. "Eli, what did you do?" Before he could answer, the sphere projected a massive holographic image into the air, of Earth itself, surrounded by moving symbols and unfamiliar coordinates. Then came the voice again, this time loud enough to make the walls vibrate. "Human interference detected. Activation incomplete. Transmission sequence initializing." The lights flared, and in that instant, Eli realized something horrifying. The object hadn't just been calling home, it had been waking something up. The light was blinding. Amina covered her face, shouting for Eli to run, but he stood frozen, his eyes locked on the giant holographic Earth spinning above them. The voice spoke again, louder, clearer. Transmission initializing. Origin confirmed. Primary directive, restoration of contact. A symbol blinked rapidly across the hologram. 3 circles intersecting, pulsing like a heartbeat. Amina's voice trembled. "Eli, what does it mean?" He stared at the glowing sphere. "It's not an invasion, it's communication." The vibration in the ground intensified. Cracks spread through the chamber as if something deep beneath them was stirring awake. Suddenly, the small object detached itself from the sphere and hovered between them. A brilliant beam of light shot from it, scanning Eli from head to toe. Human compatibility verified. Neural resonance established. Amina gasped. "It's responding to you." Before Eli could react, the beam engulfed him entirely. Memories, images, and voices he had never known flooded his mind. Ancient cities buried under ice, great ships sailing through the stars, and beings of light watching over the earth long before humanity began. He dropped to his knees, trembling. "They were here," he whispered. "They left something behind. This core. It's a warning system." The holographic voice spoke again, but this time it wasn't cold or mechanical. It sounded almost human. Cataclysm threshold approaching. Planetary imbalance detected. Transmission must continue. Amina's eyes widened. "Cataclysm? Eli, it's saying something terrible is coming." Outside, thunder cracked. The earth above the red hills trembled violently. Eli's mind raced as the images continued to flash. Volcanic eruptions, flooded cities, storms tearing across continents. Then, one final image. A network of these same spheres buried across the planet, all linked, all waiting. He turned to Amina, tears in his eyes. "It's not trying to destroy us. It's trying to warn us, to reactivate the network, before it's too late." But before he could act, floodlights blazed through the tunnel entrance. Soldiers stormed in, shouting orders. Behind them came men in black suits, led by a tall man with a strange insignia on his coat, an eye inside a triangle. "Step away from the device," he barked. "That's government property." Eli held his ground. "You don't understand. If we shut it down, the planet now," the man shouted. Gunfire erupted. Bullets struck the sphere. The hum turned into a deep roar. Light exploded, throwing everyone to the ground. When the dust settled, the soldiers were gone. The chamber was half collapsed. Only Amina and Eli remained, and the small object, now dim but alive, floated back into Eli's hands. It pulsed once more, sending a soft signal skyward, a signal that pierced the clouds, the atmosphere, and vanished into space. Amina whispered, "Do you think anyone heard it?" Eli looked toward the faint glow of dawn breaking through the cracks above them. "Someone will," he said quietly. Because it wasn't just a message to the stars. He looked down at the device and smiled faintly. It was a message to us.